Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Mr. Cobalt, and in this video, I'm going to be going over in more detail the scientific process. But before that, please remember to like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, make a comment in the comment section if you have anything that you want to share with me or if you have any questions. With that out of the way, let's begin. So this here is pretty much the scientific method. And so what this method is, it's very detailed in this case. So the way the scientific method begins, it usually almost always begins with observations. Not always, but usually that's where it begins. So you make observations, you look at the world around you, you see things happen, and it makes you wonder, why does that happen? What's going on? What's behind that? What's the cause? Right? So what's the cause of that? So we make our observations and we get a collection of these of information from our observations, and that leads to a hypothesis. And the hypothesis is a statement or a tentative explanation of why you think this is happening. Why are these observations being made? And so you get to the hypothesis, and then your hypothesis is then subjected to experimentation. So this is a key difference between scientists in the modern era and the philosophers of ancient Greek, right? So you may be familiar with the ancient philosophers like Aristotle and um, Plato and Socrates, and so the key difference between them and modern scientists is that the use of experimentation. So we set up experiments, we test the hypothesis, and we see what happens. So then the hypothesis is subjected to the experimentation. So we have experimentation, and then based on the experimentation, one of two things can happen. So if the experimentation is successful, if we get successful results, then those results are published. So that's one of the key things in science today, in the scientific method, is that we have to publish and let others know what we found, right? If we keep it to ourselves, that's not really going to help the progress of science, right? So we publish it to let other people know. Why do we want them to know? So they can take a look at our work, and then they can test it for themselves and verify what I've done if I'm publishing my research, right? Um, so it could go there, or maybe my experimentations don't work. Maybe they don't provide proof of my hypothesis. Maybe the experimentation shows that my hypothesis is not correct. So then I go to disproof, and so that's when the experiment fails. And then what do? Do I just throw up my hands and say, okay, I guess that's it? No, I keep making more observations. I explore more into the phenomena that I'm looking at. And then, so that leads to more observations. And then those observations will lead to maybe another hypothesis. Maybe I tweak my hypothesis. Maybe it's a completely different hypothesis. But this process goes on. So the hypothesis is then subjected to a new experiment, and then that experimentation is then published. Now, what happens here is there's two ways you can go. So I publish my work. Others will then repeat the experiments, right? They will test, they will verify, right? If the other people, other scientists that read my articles, that go to my presentations and my conferences, um, or hear the presentations at other conferences, they will then experiment, test it out, and if the experiment is successful, if others are able to get the same results that I'm getting from their experiments, then that is confirmation of my hypothesis. And then if there's enough of this, if this can be applied to different areas, then it would become a theory, right? And then now we get into the application part of it. That theory, that hypothesis or theory can now have application. So we can apply that to different areas. And so we see those applications. Do they work, right? And so then if applications are then, if they work or if they don't work, maybe further research is done so that those applications can be refined, and then you get back to the hypothesis. So if the applications work, then that's even further support for the hypothesis. And at this point, it maybe even becomes a theory at this point, if there's enough confirmation, and if it applies to a lot of different areas or more than one area, and it becomes more broad and more general, then we get a theory going on here. But what if at the publication, if we go back here, maybe others do the experiment and they're not getting the same results. They're not able to repeat the experiment with the success that I had. Well, if others can't repeat my experiments, then that's disproof of the experiment. So others should be able to follow the same procedures, do the same experiment, and come up with the same results, right? So maybe I made a mistake, maybe they made a mistake. They're going to have to publish their results, right? And then me and others would have to look at their results and critique them. Maybe they did it wrong. Maybe there's something wrong in their methodology. Maybe it's different from what I did, right? So then there's room for discussion and communication there. But if it turns out that they did the exact same experiment exactly the way I did it and they're not getting the same results, then that's disproof of my hypothesis. And we got to go back to the drawing board, right? So that would be disproof, make more observations, set up the experiment again, maybe tweak it, and then the process goes on and on and on. This is never ending process. It doesn't stop, right? It's not like we just give up and we say we're not making any more observations. We're always making observations in science. And so this process is repeated over and over again because we never really going to get to the full truth of what's out there. There's so much out there, there's so much to know, that it would be hubris to assume that we're ever going to know 100% of everything in the natural world to that degree. And so that's the scientific method. So I hope you like this video. If you like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, put a comment in the comment section. Let me know what you think. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.